Shit moms won't say.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Shit Moms Won't Say. You are probably looking at your screen right now and going, oh my God, where do I know her from? Let me make it super, super easy on you because the answer is everywhere. My guest tonight is an internationally recognized, that's right, she is a global bitch, sexuality and relationship expert. You probably recognize her from seeing her on shows like, oh, I'm sorry, Oprah. Why don't I just die? The Today Show, the Rachael Ray Show, Joy Behar Show. I don't know. She's gone at it with Sean Hannity a few times. Maybe, I don't know, just to name a few, no big deal. Author, host, TV personality, doctor, mom of two, Dr. Logan Levkoff. Hello.
Hello. I'm not sure I can live up to that introduction.
You know what? I'm fairly sure you can because I've seen you live up to that intro before.
Well, thank you.
I've seen you just be like, nah, fuck it, I'm doing whatever I want. So welcome to my show. I'm so psyched to have you here. Like I was saying to you before, I'm sort of a wild fan. I love your whole vibe. And I think if anybody's watching this that doesn't already know you is going to walk away from this being like, I have to Google her.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's taken me a long time to hone my principled asshole voice. So I'm glad it's put to good use.
Well, welcome. You can use your asshole voice on my show anytime.
No, principled.
Oh,
asshole.
Principled asshole.
It's very important to have that word in front because it sort of justifies everything else.
See, I just have an asshole voice. So maybe I need to get my doctorate to then be, or like my PhD to become a principled asshole.
Yeah, no, I don't even think you need the PhD. I think you just need to have a super strong set of values and really be unapologetic about the things that you say. And you don't need any degrees for that. You just need to be comfortable putting aside the bullshit that we usually get and say, you know what, I'm done. I'm playing by my own rules.
That sounds very familiar to me. Perhaps I am a principled asshole. Well, listen, before we get into Big Mom 3, I have to ask because I have an obsession with Rachael Ray that I've had it for probably 20 years. I love her so much. And Oprah, Rachael Ray, like, how do you comprehend that you sort of know these women? Like, do you just like walk around being like, I've met Oprah, whatever, like, I know Rachael Ray, whatever.
No, so it's really funny. So I have to say, Oprah was a really long time ago. Like
Oprah.
It was amazing. But I think that because I was so young and dumb when I did Oprah, I mean, I think I was probably 27 years old and I was on for a show where it was called How Two Generations Talk About Sex. And it was women in our 20s. And then there were like the pioneers of the feminist movement. And I might have been slightly set up to be this like super liberal, sex positive, anything goes kind of chick. Which, I mean, she was perfectly lovely. Her audience did not love me. Did not. I mean, the interesting thing is, I mean, at the time there used to be message boards. This is obviously like early internet. And the only thing I remember seeing, and I should have saved it, but again, it was so long ago, I didn't think about it, was you should have that Logan girl come back when she's married with children. Or when maybe when she's married or something. It was something like, maybe if someone puts a ring on that finger, she'll just like pull her shit together. And it was funny because I had been married like for years at that point, wearing a wedding band and all. But I think that sometimes just the package for good and bad, like when you talk about sex, the assumption is that you are just wild, non-monogamous and free. And by the way, if you are all of those things, great. Cool. But no, her audience was
I hated you. Well, listen, I'm glad you got to meet Oprah, and I'm sorry that her audience hated you, and I'm sorry to trigger you on my show.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. I mean, it's good because I was so young and clueless. Like I flew out there by myself. I didn't have a publicist. I didn't have like a family member with me. I had no one. So I just went in, had this experience, left, and then was left to deal with the fallout. Like, oh my God, I just did Oprah.
That's very cool. All right. So Oprah, I gotcha. And my girl, Rachael Ray. Who's
adorable. Who every time I've been on that show, she's like, oh, what are we talking about today?
I feel like she might be the least sexual person on the planet, and that's why it's super funny. Like watching her talk about sex has made me laugh every single time.
Yeah, so I had done a few of those shows. I haven't done it recently, but early on, I did a lot of fun things with them, a lot of fun segments. And it got to the point where a producer called me once and said, Logan, what have you always wanted to talk about on TV and no one's ever let you? And so I threw out the one thing no one has ever let me talk about. And I said, female masturbation.
Yes.
And the producers were like, yeah, I don't think so. And I said, okay, well, you asked me what I wanted to talk about. I kid you not, 24 hours later, they were putting together a segment, not only on female masturbation, but they had found a guest to experience masturbation for the first time as a field piece. I know. And I just thought, I cannot believe I got to do this segment. This is wild.
That aired?
It did. I know, it did.
I'll have to find that. I love that. That's terrific. Well,
with the warning, because before every time I go on TV, someone has to say, if you have children in your house, please tell them that maybe it's time to leave the room.
Logan Levkoff, wild sex addict therapist. Love it.
Like that.
Oh my God, please. All right. Well, we're going to get into your amazing, amazing career in a few minutes, but you are not immune to the Big Mom 3 because I want to know every single one of your answers. So
okay.
First question of the Big Mom 3, did you always know you wanted to be a mom?
I've spent so much time trying to figure this out. I don't know. I don't think I didn't grow up thinking, oh, I have to be a mom. I don't even think I entered adulthood thinking I want to be a mom. So I know that sounds like such a non-committal sort of answer, but I think that, maybe I'm just an egomaniac that wanted to raise sexually healthy young people who were going to populate the world with other really smart, savvy, sexually healthy people.
Listen, if that's why you had kids, right? It's still pretty woke. If that's why you had kids, it's a woke enough reason to have them. So
well, I do think at some point I realized that perhaps I wanted to have children with the person I was choosing to spend my life with. That too. But this idea of taking care of little beings actually was never on my radar. Actually, although I took a women's, it was like I think it was Feminism 101 class when I was a junior. I spent a summer at Harvard because I'm a huge nerd, apparently. I did a summer school class there when I was 17 years old, and I took this women's studies class, and we had to basically write some sort of letter. It was supposed to be about someone else, but I couldn't think about someone else. I had to think about myself, about where I was going to be in 10 years. And I had this whole narrative that I found recently that I was going to have a child, but that I was going to be unpartnered.
Oh. Okay. Well, and listen, I don't want to brag. You did go to Harvard. I didn't
go. I went to Harvard for like a 4-week program.
You dropped the H-bomb, and I'll do the same. I have a creative writing degree from Hofstra University on Long Island. So amazing. Not to compare.
Listen, you should compare because I spent 4 weeks in a summer program. Like, I don't even think I got a grade.
I love it. What's my favorite is like during all of this, the COVID times, every week. So like my real life, this is not my profession. Could you imagine? That would be wonderful. It's not. In my real life, I'm in business, and I get emails every week from Cornell being like, don't forget the eCornell program, I'm like, could you imagine? I could be like, I have this degree from Cornell. I got it online in 3 weeks. Yeah, it's that. But you can, in fact, be like, yeah, I went to Harvard for 4 weeks.
for 4 weeks in 1992.
It counts.
Maybe 1993.
I like it. I think it counts. It's fine. You're a recent Harvard graduate,
Yeah, right.
and sexologist. Perfect. Great answer. So second question of the Big Mom 3. What is the shittiest or most backhanded piece of advice you have ever gotten from another mother or parent?
So I've thought about this too. And it occurs to me that most advice I got was pretty shitty.
Oh yeah. Women are horrible.
Yeah. And I think it was because as a sexuality educator, I spend so much of my time deliberately, sometimes deliberately, but it just so happens that I buck traditions a lot. So, my son has always had long hair and his favorite color was hot pink and he had hot pink gloves. And, we talked about things honestly. And when he was in preschool and his teacher was pregnant, she said, I have a baby in my belly. And he said, did no one tell you it was called a uterus? So, that's, so those are my children. And so, basically anytime someone said something to me like, should you really be talking to him about those things? Actually, yes, I should.
Yes, of course you should. Oh my God. I had a feeling you'd have a good answer for that because yes, you certainly buck traditions, but there are traditions that need to be like thrown off of the roof of a building in the city because kids don't know shit. That's why people grow up and have terrible sex lives and terrible understanding of like what the female body is and what the male body. You have to teach people that.
I know. So I think a lot of commentary was typically about that. Although I do remember the one, I don't even think it was advice, but it was the thing that annoyed me most that changed the way I parented was early in my eldest is almost 16 years old. So it's been a long time, but there was one time when we had friends, we had a baby, their baby was maybe 6 months older than ours. And we had all these plans made and we had all rescheduled things. And 2 minutes before we were supposed to have these big plans, they're like, oh, sorry, she's napping. We can't make we can't have plans. And I thought, okay, I am not going to be the parent whose life revolves around when my kid is sleeping. And I just remember as a response to that one night, we got a 10 p.m. dinner reservation somewhere. And we didn't have a sitter at the time. And I said, I'm taking the baby. And I took him in his car seat and I stuck it on an upside down chair. And I said, he'll sleep through dinner, but I am not missing dinner. I don't care if it's 10 p.m.
Good for you. They need to fit into our lives.
Yes.
Of course. Perfect. Okay. Third and final question of the Big Mom 3. What is a skill or superpower you had before becoming a mom that you feel has really helped you as a mom?
I did ask my children for their answer to this.
Did you?
I did.
I love that.
I did. I came up with a different answer.
So give me all three because you have 2 kids.
Yes, I have 2. My daughter is 11, almost 12. She actually just said whatever Maverick said, assuming that he was going to say something witty, and she would just, she didn't want to get in trouble for saying the wrong thing. He said, your superpower is making people comfortable talking about really uncomfortable things, and that's really helpful as a parent. I said, oh,
that's incredible.
So
oh my God, you could like retire tomorrow from parenting. You did your job. Good for you.
Believe me, there are plenty of times when I have to get them dressed in the morning. You wouldn't think that. I actually think that my best parenting skill is I have this constant, and urge is the wrong word. I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. So I really have zero desire to be perfect. I really could give a shit about living up to other people's standards or expectations. It doesn't mean that I don't want success or want to achieve and be good at what I do, but I really don't care about this like ridiculous paradigm of perfection, which worked as a non-parent, but it really works now because I don't get so swept up in what other people are going to say about me or what my children decide to do or what they choose to do with their life or their after school activities or what they want to wear. Like my success isn't wrapped up in that. So I think that would be it.
That's a great answer. That's a really good answer. And here I am, because, we're both, New York Jews. I'm wondering how you've escaped like the Jewish guilt of not living up to other people's standards. Good for you. Because I'm like, oh God, what if somebody watches this?
I don't know. I wish I had an answer. But it could also be that, I don't know. I grew up with my mom and my dad and my younger sister, and my dad was always like, listen, we have no double standards in our house. You're a woman, you do whatever you need to do. The rules are the same for everyone. Like, go out there and tackle the world. And I went, okay. And at some point, and also when you start to talk about sex publicly, look, I walk into a lot of things, right? And I know exactly what I'm walking into. So I think you have to develop some sort of thick skin and a devil may care attitude.
Perfect. So let's talk about that. So first of all, I want to understand, like, what point in your life you're like, that's it. That's what I want to do. I want to become a sex educator, like the Sexpert, right? Like, how did you know that was what you wanted?
That's a great question. I grew up on Long Island I was a teenager in the early 90s, and my
island born and bred.
That's right. My parents spent a lot of time working on HIV and AIDS education early on, and fundraising and developing these helping to develop these amazing peer HIV and AIDS education programs at a time when, even if you had never talked about sex before, like, it was different, and people had to step up to the plate because HIV didn't discriminate. It wasn't about sexual orientation or sex or gender or anything, right? It's a virus. So I started as a 15-year-old peer HIV and AIDS educator. I came home after school one day and there were condoms and bananas on our dinner table. And my parents were like, this is how you use a condom, and you go to peer training next week. And for whatever reason, this didn't seem to faze me. And it wasn't like we were so liberal, but I've always had a really big mouth, and I haven't been afraid to use it. And I just needed to find the subject in which to use my big mouth. And what I hadn't anticipated was that even though at the time I was having not an ounce of any sex of my own, though I was talking about it, I found myself really comfortable talking about all things relating to sex and sexuality. I really hated how homophobic and small-minded my town and my community was at the time. I was really motivated to be that principled asshole who challenged anyone and anything that she saw. I went to a pro-choice rally in high school, and I had a support vaginal pride sticker on my loose leaf, and every school in the neighboring towns knew me forever and then as the lesbian. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, yes. That's because
listen,
that's all
we do take a great deal of vaginal pride. I can confirm, but
we all should. But did I know the sticker was going to be the giveaway? Who knows? So it was really, it's so ridiculous. And there's still people who I meet that are like, oh, do you remember when the rumor went around about you? I'm like, yeah, I do. But
I do. Yeah, I remember. Thank you. It ruined my teenage years. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. It's a great story. I tell my kids now, and they're like, people are stupid. So I wound up going to college with some really, who I perceived to be bright and sophisticated young women, and again, at the time, there wasn't a real discussion about the expansiveness of gender and identity. So when I use those terms, I'm not like deliberately being exclusionary. It was different.
Sure. Until very recently, it was.
Yeah. And so, no one even knew how to have those conversations, but we were starting to have conversations about sex. And I found that my friends were sexually active, but all of us were making some really bad decisions. And it wasn't like the not using protection or birth control decision. It was like no pleasure, no equity, terrible expectations, couldn't talk about our needs or pleasure, anything. And I just thought, like, there has to be something better. So I basically just tried to step into a role that I thought was missing. If you had asked me then if it was going to become a career, I thought I was going to be a lawyer.
Oh, That's so
I did
funny.
not think this was what I was going to do. And when I was offered an opportunity to go to grad school and continue my, all of the writing and work and speaking that I was doing in this space, I mean, I remember my parents calling me on the phone and saying, okay, that's great. What are you going to do with this degree? And I said, I actually have no idea. I don't know, but I know that whatever path I was on before isn't the right one. So I'm just gonna run with it and see what happens. And I was super lucky.
It seems, it's worked out. I love that it was sort of built from like, I think everybody like high school and college, you're like, God, like sex is whatever. Like, it's just something we do, right? Like, it's not the best. And then you like get older and you're like, oh, wait a second. I see. I love.
And you're also going back and thinking
how
much you've wasted, how much time you wasted. You're like,
oh my God.
I mean,
the amount of people that I had sex with that just were like, it was the equivalent of drinking this water bottle and then like going to bed, like the most boring shit in the world, right? But you don't know what you don't know. So I love that it was built from you just being like, everybody's having such boring sex.
It was just,
like,
it was so bad. And I felt so, I don't think it was shame because I know what that feels like in a different way, but it wasn't shame, but I just felt so badly. Like we were supposed to be smart. We were supposed to be a generation of empowered people. And here we were. And like, this is what we were messing up. Like, it just didn't make any sense to me.
So cool. And like, so what you've done with it's really amazing. And, like I shared with you earlier and what I'm going to share now, I've seen so many interviews with you where you've been a real principled asshole in a really, really like beautiful and intelligent way. And there's two quotes that you have that we're going to go two different topics here, but I'm going to start with one and then we're going to go to the other. So the first one, I believe this was on Good Morning America. You were talking about your book, which is very appropriately titled How to Get Your Wife to Have Sex with You. It
was a Today Show.
It was Today Show. Okay, that's right. Was it Kathy Lee and Hoda? I remember who you were looking. Yeah, it was Kathy Lee.
Oh, yes.
Which is amazing.
Who slut shamed women as I was sitting.
Yes, they called someone a slut. That's right. I forgot.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. I literally forgot that until you just said it. Was it Kathy Lee who was like slut?
Yeah. We were talking about women's fantasies, and she said, "Who are all these women?" I said, "You'd be surprised. Women have lots of different fantasies." And she's like, "Sluts." I'm like, "That's right. That's not how it works." No.
You know what? Let me just say it. Kathy Lee Gifford, I saw you play Miss Hannigan, and I thought you were terrible. I've also played Miss Hannigan, and I was a lot better. So anyway, we're moving on. You're not welcome on my show, Kathy Lee Gifford. Rest in peace, Regis. So part two of that. Part one, I should say. You said something that I thought was so smart, because a lot of times on this show, what will come up is like, I didn't know that I lost myself in becoming a mom, or I didn't know who I was when I became a mom. And you just become like, I'm Lily's mommy, right? But I came into motherhood really knowing who I was. I'm just Jess. I'm sort of this 35-year-old person who still wears my Converse and my stupid t-shirts and plays guitar and does theater. Like, I didn't lose myself, but I think a lot of moms do. And you said something, I'm going to read the quote. And you said, it's really hard to feel like a sex goddess when you can't even remember what your name is. And it was in reference to just that. It was in reference to like, well, I'm Lily's mom. So what are you doing to continue to sort of drive that narrative down of like, moms are women. Like moms are sexual beings and women. We're not just like these lumps of like mom clay.
Yeah, even though it feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely 100%.
Yeah. Well, you really have to have a multi-prong approach to this, because you as an individual have to remember who you are, and not just remember, actively remind yourself of all of the qualities you have and all of the passions that you have, not like before, but even now. What are the things I want to be doing right now? And I think often mothers don't do that. We're so worried about taking care of everyone else. We forget that we have a dream. We have lots of dreams that we can be attempting to work towards. So there's the self piece of it. There is definitely, if you have a partner, the partner piece of it is of reminding your partner that, if you are only referring to your partner as mommy, like that's a problem. Yes. That doesn't feel so sexy, no matter who's saying it. You're like, no, not really.
It should never feel sexy.
Yeah, no. It's no. And then of course there's the which is harder to do when your children are really young, but it's a reminder to your kids of who you are. And it's important for them to see you as more than just mom, the things that you can accomplish, the things that you can achieve. For me, when my kids were really little, we always, I mean, I'm a little nuts. I gave birth on a Sunday, and I was in a classroom teaching on Wednesday.
You girl, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I just figured we had a baby nurse. I was going to be teaching for an hour. Kid didn't need me, and I needed to get into a space where I felt like I was still doing what I needed to be doing. And there's
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Listen, my wife, so I didn't carry our baby. My wife gave birth October 25th. I was on stage the next week. So you have to do you. I totally get it. It's important.
And I get that. Again, also, there's a luxury and privilege to be able to say, like, you can stay at home, for sure.
Absolutely.
But I do think now, and as my kids have gotten older, I've deliberately shown them, Logan, me, mom, I go out with my friends. I've gone on girls' trips. I have dinners. I have a book club. I do things, with their father, but I also do things without. I want them to see me in all of these roles. So I'm not just the person that heats up the oatmeal in the morning. I mean, I do a lot of that, but I'm not just that person. But it's hard to do. It's a multi-pronged attack.
For sure. And I love it. And it comes up on here all the time. And it's nice to hear that like area of opinion coming and like colliding, right? So part 2 of this, and it's going to take a little bit of a shift, is just another like quote. And it was when you were coming at somebody who I hate so much. You were going directly at Sean Hannity, I believe. And he was talking about probably some asshole like that. But, he was talking about like sex education, like you're like teaching kids how to have sex and it's disgusting and you shouldn't. You were like, hey, crazies, absolutely not. Like sex education is not teaching children how to have sex. Like has nothing to do with that. So we're going to kind of go 2-parter on this. Okay. First of all, I want to know what it's like to go at Sean Hannity because that's really funny. But you have your own kids. So, I mean, how do you talk about sex education with your own kids? And like, how do you continue to drive that narrative forward? So now sort of part 2 of that.
Oh, lots of good
Let's
questions.
do it.
Okay. So first, you want another good quote?
Yeah,
sex
of course.
Begins at birth.
Ooh.
Yeah. Quote me on that. Feel free to. I mean, or don't quote me. I mean, use it yourself. I don't care.
No, I'll dash Logan Levkoff. Sure.
And people have a very particular reaction to that statement, like, oh, what are you talking about? You can't talk about sex with babies. And I want to remind people that we've shortened the phrase sex ed, so we do ourselves a disservice by assuming it's about sex. But sexuality, which is what it is, I mean, is literally the core of who we are from birth to death. It's far more than what we might do and who we do it with. It's the way in which we express ourselves, we use our voice, how we feel about our bodies, our feelings, the roles we play in relationships, plus assign sex, gender, sexual orientation, and all those other things. But when you start to see it in this holistic way, you realize it really has nothing to do with where you put certain body parts. And again, like, if all these people for all these years were teaching people how to have sex, then why are there so many people having bad sex if they've all been taught how to
ding, 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 ding. That's right.
So we don't. I can't do that in a classroom with any age group for that matter. I can't tell people how to have sex. I can talk to them about the many various ways in which we define sex, and sex means different things to different people, and it's intimate and personal and private, and it should be pleasurable, and it comes with responsibilities, and has different outcomes depending on how you practice it and how you communicate with partners. But it's not saying like, this is how you put this body part next to or inside of another one. Like that's ridiculous. And even if we were doing that, then I mean, maybe people would have better sex. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Maybe it's not the worst idea in the world. So, but then, what I'm curious about, so obviously having kids, so I think you said 16 and 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
right. It's almost 16, almost 12.
Almost 16, almost 12.
It's my sweet spot. Like I was made for this. This is my This is
I remember
my
you
time.
saying that when we met, that you were like, I was ready for teenagers. And what's funny is, and I think she's gonna be on the show maybe 2 weeks before you, her name's Ader-Ferretti, and she's a behavior mama. She's a BCBA. She had said, like, I only know how to parent until the age of 8. And then I met you and you're like, I'm like 8 and up. And I was like, the two of you together would create like the perfect mom. Like she's like 8, birth control. And you're like, no, 8, I'm ready. I got this. So
Right, but there's no such thing as perfect. I'm not big on perfect, so I can't.
There's no perfect. You don't even like perfect. You said
I can be like blissfully ungraceful, that or whatever. I
like that too.
wrong,
You've given me a lot of food for thought on terminology to use about other people. It's great. But so talk to me a little bit about your own kids and how they, respond to you being a sex educator. And do they love it? Is it something that they're embarrassed by? Because again, we're trying to take the stigma out. So how do they respond to it?
The truth is, they don't know anything else.
That's fair.
They've only had a mom who talks about sex and sexuality for a living. So I will say they have both. And I've taught their sex ed classes with them in them. True.
That might literally be my worst nightmare, but okay. Not you specifically, like my own relatives.
So they've been incredibly welcoming and receptive to it all. I mean, they don't look at any of these issues as being taboo. These are things we talk about at the dinner table. These are things we talk about first thing in the morning, and not in a gratuitous way. Things come up organically. So they don't know from feeling any guilt or shame. I will tell you that I have 2 very different kids though. One loves to be the center of attention and like loves it, thrives off it. And the other one just sort of wants to be a little like, she's in the mix, but she doesn't really want the attention for it. Right. So it's an interesting dynamic. So, when I teach, I think sometimes the validation doesn't necessarily come from me, but I think when my kids' friends say, wow, could you ask your mom this? Or, when I come to your house, is your mom going to be there? I think that those things, give them the sense of pride, like, wow, not every person's parent can do this, but it's been thrilling to be able to do this and also watch my kids navigate these issues with their own friends. That being said, I'm absolutely the sexuality educator who, in times of COVID and raising a teenager, and I tell him this, and they've consented to anything I've shared. You should know. I said to him the other day, he wanted to go hang out with his friends on Monday, and as he left, I said, be safe, be careful, meaning, the masks and the Purell and everything else. And as he left, I just thought, this is so sad because I should be using that phrase to talk about sex, right? Yeah. I should be saying, be safe and careful because you're going out with your friends and teenagers express themselves and explore, and explore their sexuality. So, but of course, I didn't. And I said to him afterwards, when at the end of the day, I said, I have to say, I feel badly. I feel badly for your generation right now that you're not having those moments where you get to test out physical intimacy with another person.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, we're going to start to wrap it up, but I'm so thankful for you coming on and everything that you do, and being a principled asshole is my new favorite term. So I have 2 final questions for you.
Okay.
The first being, what is something you cannot live without as a mom?
I feel like it's probably in poor taste to say tequila, but I mean, that might be something.
You're not the first, you're not the last.
No, actually, it's not a product, but like it's something I have to have. I'm a bath person.
Oh, okay.
This might be overshare, but I have to take a bath every day. It's like,
really?
even if it's for 5 minutes, I need to be in the tub, ideally with no one bothering me. I mean, I'd be lying if I told you that never happened, but there is something about, I can't meditate. I'm too squirmy and irritating, but but there is something about sitting in hot water for like even 5 minutes.
Okay.
I can pick myself back up and be a person again.
I love that. Okay. That's a great answer.
And if there's a glass of wine next to the tub, like not the worst thing.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. I have such a short attention span that I like can't deal with a bath. Like I'm the type of person I sit down in the bath and I'm like tapping my fingers and I'm like, now what? Now what? Now what? Now what do I do? Like I have no attention span. So I think that's a really cool answer. Maybe I'll try it again. We'll see.
It's really enjoyable. It's really enjoyable when no one bothers you. I spent a lot of time. I'm going to share. May I share one story about privacy,
Sure.
which I think is I have hope for the future. So years ago, my daughter Memphis must have been maybe 2. Mav was probably 6. And it was a Saturday morning. I was in the bathroom. I was sitting on the toilet. And like I wasn't like doing it. I was about to wipe, right? I mean, it was like
You're at the end.
I was at the end, but like the punchline comes in a minute. And so they both, enter, and my little one says, "I need breakfast." And I just looked at them and said, I need 2 minutes. I need 2 minutes to myself. And my son looked at me and said, "Do you need to put in a tampon?" And I looked at him because it was true. And I said, "Actually, I do. I need a minute to put in a tampon." And he said, he takes his sister's hand and he goes, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll get her breakfast." I just thought, see, this is why you start teaching them honestly at a young age, because they develop empathy and that turns into responsibility.
I love that.
They'll buy your products if you need them to without fear of embarrassment.
That's great. I love that story. That's awesome. That's great. Okay, final question. What is something you know now that you wish you knew before becoming a mom?
Okay, say that again. Say that again, just to make sure I'm thinking correctly.
I'll say it again. What is something you know now that you wish you knew before becoming a mom?
Other than the fact that when everyone says fill in the baby books, you really should do it.
You really should, yeah.
And when
you don't.
Yeah. Other than that. It's going to sound so cliche, but we spend so much time when they're either preparing for having a baby or early on, like worrying about all like the little stuff and the things, and like the little stuff means nothing. At the end of the day, kids would rather play in a corrugated box than with something fancy. They just want to be there. They just want to know that the person they love and who loves them is present for them. And it's not about the things, right? It's just about being there. And I think that it's a good reminder for everyone, because we get so swept up in, do we have the things we need in order to be this perfect parent? And the truth is, none of it matters. Not an ounce of it.
No, it's true. That's so true. Logan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess.
And of course, where can people find you? What's the website, Instagram, social media? Where can they find you?
So they're very distinct voices on each platform. I mean, brace yourself.
Good voices. They're funny voices.
So, on Twitter and Instagram, it's both at Logan Levkoff. Twitter is a much angrier Logan. Instagram is a much kinder Logan. And much to my children's sheer horror, I am now testing out TikTok.
I knew you were going to say
which they are mortified by, at Dr. Logan Levkoff, Dr. Logan Levkoff, which just really shows me not figuring out like how to get the captions in the right area, but I'm working on it.
It's hard. TikTok's hard for old people. Everybody should leave us alone. It's too
I know.
hard.
I know. It was really a test to see like what I could do with it. I'm not committed just yet, but I'm trying. I'm playing around.
It's tough. And the things that get like viral type of views are people being like, ooh, like there's comedy gold on there and nobody gives a shit about it. So
yeah, I'm not dancing. I mean, my kid said, are you going to do the dances? I said, do you know me? No, I'm not doing dancing. I'm just going to talk. They're like, yeah, you don't get my followers.
It's true. You won't, but that's okay. Follow her on TikTok anyway. And for all you guys out there, keep on watching Shit Moms Won't Say. We love you. Have a great night and we'll see you next week.